Okay, now we're looking at the operator panel on your new automatic tube filling system, and we're just going to take a few moments to quickly try to show you what everything does here, and give you some idea of how to run this machine. First thing we're going to do is turn the power on. We have air to the machine and power, and you'll see the display will light up. And then right away, because this is important, I want to walk around to the back of the machine and turn the chiller on. Now our chiller is connected. Our lines are connected. We just want to press that on button, then you can hear the pump start. The reason for that is you need the chiller when you're running the heater. So I just wanted to make sure you got that. Okay, now our operator panel's up and running. Basically what you're dealing with, you'll be mostly in the automatic mode. And then you have a manual mode as well. In the automatic mode, let me turn the air on. Excuse me one sec. We're on. Okay, here at the operator panel, you'll be in automatic mode most of the time. I'll just briefly explain the functions. The host frequency is the speed. It goes from 0 to 50, and we're up around 20. 20 seems to be it's pretty good, comfortable speed so far from what we've been running. And these are the various functions. This tube output is the tube magazine motor. You can see that's just a kicker plate that helps the tubes go through. And this adjusts the speed of that. Slow, fast. Midway seems to work very nice. Tube upload that actually tells the machine that you want to run tubes. Now if you have a run and you're finished, you don't want to run any tubes, you can just press this and it'll do the rest of the functions without feeding tubes into the machine. Actually, auto running you'll be in pretty much all the time. They probably will hit that first. Not that it matters, but actually all the functions will be lit if you're going to run, if you have an automatic run. Now here, a filling that will allow it to fill or to not fill. And then the temperature control, that will energize your heater. Now let's go down here. This is the blower. This knob controls the blower, the heater blower. We've been running around 59, 60, which is set. This is here. That's your display. Now below that, if you turn that below, it will turn the heater off. Actually, the heater. I'll show you. I'll turn the temperature on. Now it's calling for heat. You'll see it rises pretty quickly. But if you lose air to the blower, if this goes below 30, that will de-energize. You'll see it's down. It peaked. Now it's going to come back down. So it needs to have air blowing past the nozzle. It'll burn everything up without it. So that's that. This is your temperature setting. That's your target right now. It's going to go to 565. That's the temperature we were running. The 3-ounce tubes seem to run very nicely at that temperature setting and at that speed. Now the speed will affect the temperature required to do the tubes. If you're running slower, the tubes will be at the heater station longer, so you'll need less heat. So that'll be really determined by your production needs, and the cameraman is showing me what the heater dropping. That's the temperature control is off. Now when it's on, it'll climb back up. I wanted to mention something about that. When we're running, there's a note here about when you're stopping the tubes. you don't want to stop a tube underneath that heater station, because there's a lot of heat coming out of that nozzle. It'll soften the tubes and probably melt it. So if you do stop, other than e-stop, e-stop is, if you have to use it, you have to use it. But when you're at a normal stopping, if you stop the machine, get into the habit of turning that off, and then jog it around until there's not a tube directly below that nozzle. It'll save you aggravation. And all right, now we'll get to that. Oh, before that, I'll show you the manual functions. In the manual mode, that just shows you all the various functions. Mainly they're air functions. With the exception of the benchmarking, that's just where the machine codes where it rotates the containers so there's a mark there so that they're oriented the same way, so that when they're crimped, they're facing the right way. And if you hit that, you'll just see that table rotate. But there's not a tube there, so it doesn't know what to look for. So you don't really have to be too concerned with this. Filling nozzle, the benchmarking. I didn't mention before when we were covering the setup of the machine. There's the eye that reads the orientation of the container, and it talks to the stepper motor, which rotates the container. And when you change these heads, as I mentioned, this head works for, or it's actually just a rotating disc. That works for the 3 ounce and the 8 ounce container. There's a smaller one that works with the 1.5 ounce container. Now when you change that, you do have to move this photo eye in or out. Now it's in the back position for the larger head, and there's a line on the front of that. We're powered up, so I don't want to go in there, but there's a line on the front of this that you'll be able to see. We move the eye back to that mark. Now on the small head, there's a little line on this. It's on this block. We move it forward, and you'll be able to see that line. And that adjustment is made over here. There's two small socket head cap screws. Now everything is all set in. Now we could rotate this around till the lift table come up, and then hit benchmark and verify that the eye is seeing what it's supposed to see. That's all set. I just wanted to mention that while I'm thinking of it. Okay, moving on, we'll just quickly go through these functions. This is the filling nozzle. When you press these, especially the air functions, when you press them, it just energizes the solenoid that controls the component. Now in this case, filling nozzle, you can see that's that plunger that runs up and down through the actual filling nozzle. It just when it's up, while it's filling in the automatic mode, that'll be up. Basically, we're just verifying everything is functioning correctly. Turn valve is the filling valve. It's what we call the pallet, is the rotating piece in the center of the valve. Now I'll hit that and show you. Again, it's just telling you that the solenoid is acting properly and that everything's wired right. This is called tube pull. That's the motor that actually helps move the tubes along in the feeder magazine. Heating will start the heater even in the manual mode. You'll see it climbing now. That is as long as you have air. As long as you have more than 30 units of air. Now, as I mentioned, the heater does know that it has air, but it doesn't know that the chiller's on. That's why that was the first thing I did, was when I started the machine up, I turned the chiller on, because the heater, it doesn't know, and it'll get too hot for those fittings if there's not water running through there. So that's that. The brake wire is what that is there is air running down through the filling nozzle, and in the automatic mode, that will send a burst of air to break off any stringing that happens after the fill. And Regarding the heating, a couple of things. Don't exceed 700 on your setting here. It will ask. It'll ask if you ask for more. It can exceed it, but don't ever go beyond 700. But you won't need it. And the other thing is, after you shut the machine down, don't shut the air off for about 10 or 15 minutes. And that is this air. So in other words, leave the air supply to the machine to let that heater cool down. Okay. Next thing was the brake wire. What that is a burst of air that comes down through the filling nozzle after the fill, and that is all timed in automatically, so that once it's done filling, it shoots a little bit of air through the nozzle and cuts off any stringing that may occur after the fill. Now I'll hit that and you can hear it probably. Hear it? Now that is controlled, by the way, through this. There's a flow control valve here. Can you see that? You can get more or less, depending on what is needed to break that string. By rotating that flow control valve, you can increase or decrease the force that has. The tube loader is the tube carriage. The tube down is exactly what it sounds like. Now when I'm setting up when we're setting up the changeover, I'll load a tube and then down verify that everything's properly set. That's actually quite nice having that function there. The upload is just this little, I don't know if you can see it, that's just a little stop cylinder that it holds the the load of tubes, holds too many of them from stacking up against the one you want to fill. And that's just to verify that everything's working properly. Now the blow is at the cutting station. There's a burst of air that blows off the trimmed part of the tube. Again, that's all timed in automatically when you're in the automatic mode, which is here. Now let's moving on down. This is your main power e-stop. The jog function and the run function will work regardless of your setting up here. You can jog anytime you want. I'm in automatic mode there, so let's go back to manual for now. So I'll jog it around. It does just what it says. Now in the run mode, it'll run, and it'll run until you hit stop. That's, as I mentioned, let's say if for whatever reason you want to stop, if you wanted to stop it in, for whatever reason you want to stop it, and you notice there's a table up at the blower, I would let's say it stopped here, I would jog it around until the tables drop and it moves slightly. Just, you don't want that tube underneath that blower for too long. Okay, let's go to automatic mode and we'll run the various functions. We won't do much else now because when I put tubes in there, the eye has to see a container, then it will fill. Now that was the blower for the eject. Okay, we're down the home stretch now. I just wanted to show you this. The host frequency is the speed, and if you want to change your speed, as I said, it really goes from 0 to 50, and we're at 20. Let's say you wanted to go down to 18. You push 18, enter. Now it's at 18. And that's it. If you're not happy with that, if you want to go to 23, that's it. Go ahead. Okay, we're here. This is the chiller to the machine, and what it does is it circulates cooled water through the filling nozzle housing as well as the crimper jaws, and that's so that the tube doesn't melt basically when it's heated up, so that it can be sealed. It's important that this is kept on when you're running the heater. So that's why the first thing you want to do when you turn the machine on, turn the chiller on, so that when you know that you've done it. And that's right here, off and on. You want the setting to be 10 degrees C, which it is. It's already set, so you just got to turn it on. Now, you fill the water here. Here's a water tank. Just fill that up so at least it's above this float. If you go below that, you'll see this alarm light. And to get rid of the alarm, you just I would just turn it off, fill it, turn it back on, and the alarm will reset itself. And the only other thing, really, there's 3 connections. The power to the chiller and the feedback from the thermocouple is here. That's just one plug, and then there's two lines. Clear one and a black one that connect to the side of the filling unit here. We're just going to have a look in the electrical panel here. There's not much to do in here. This is the brains of the machine. I guess I could show you. This is where our electrical tie-in is. Right at this junction block there. It's 220 single phase. Okay. Other than that, there's not much to be done in here. Okay, here in this part of the video, we're going to try to show you, maybe as quickly as we can, but still cover everything. We're going to show you how to change over from one container to another. And this machine is set up to run 3 different size containers. And right now, we were set up for the 3 ounce, and we're going to show you a changeover to an 8 ounce. And then also I'll point out the various components that we're going to change. The indexing table contains these pucks, which all have these inserts in them. The insert is sized for the particular container. They hold it tightly. We're going to change all them. We're going to adjust the feed table, the tube loader, tube feeder, whatever. We'll make various adjustments to this. We're going to adjust the height. We'll adjust this rail in and out. We'll adjust this up and down. We'll adjust this up and down. This is the tube loader carriage. Now, I should have started with this. When you're working on the machine, take the power off. Turn the power off, which includes the electric and the air. That way nobody can start the machine while your hands are in there. This is your tube loading carriage. We'll be changing that, which is this one is for the 3 ounce. We'll be changing that to the 8 ounce. This is a tube guide angle or tube guide bracket, which mounts here. You could probably see another part of the video where when the carriage flips the tube up, that guide will guide it down into the pocket. So we're going to change that. Now I just wanted to point out in the changeover from the 1.5 ounce to the 3 ounce, we were able to use the same guide angle. There is one for each container has its own angle, but we were able to leave the same one on, which just saved you one step. But each one has its own if you choose to use it. There's also an insert disc that attaches to this air cylinder. What this does, when the tubes come down, this pushes them all the way into the inserts. Each each size container has its own disc that we'll be changing. Then moving on, there's two of these. These are for the tube spinner. At this station here is where the tube gets oriented, where this photo eye sees and registers this black dot. That way every tube is oriented so it's crimped in the right spot. Now there are two of these. Let me show you what they look like. In this part of the video, we're not even going to show you the change of this, but maybe I'll get to that later. This one is used only for the 1.5. This one can be used for the 3s and the 8s. And all it is there's a set screw on the other side of here. The set screw rides up and down in a slot, and there's a spring. We will try to maybe get a video of how that's done, but it's easy. You just take the set screw out, drop this down, move the spring to this one, put it in, and it's simple. Okay, the next thing will be the filling nozzles and the plungers. Each container has a filling nozzle and a plunger associated with it. I would think you could probably use this one for both of these as well, but that's kind of up to you. And now the next thing is each container has its own heating nozzle and nozzle housing. The nozzle fits in the housing. Now, what this does is the nozzle heats the inside of the tube, and the housing keeps that nozzle, or keeps the container nice and cool on the outside so that it doesn't melt and keep its shape. So we'll change that out for this container. And so that's pretty much it for the change parts. We'll change the quantity. I'll show you that. And we're going to change, okay, well, I guess we'll start changing over now. We're going to change the disc height. Now we will give you a layout of showing all the dimensions. We'll show you the dimensions of the disc height and all these lift table heights. There's 3 here, and then there's an eject one over here. We'll also give you a layout of the height of this, the tube loader. Now, in this particular case, we are going to lower this, and I wanted to stress that if we're going to lower this table, it's important that these lift tables are out of the way. So we'll drop them down. The reason is that if you lower the table, and when these lift tables come up, some of them come up higher than the disc, so you'll bend and break things if you're not set. So we'll drop these out of the way, and we'll lower this disc to the proper setting, and then we'll show you this. So, okay, you know what we're going to do? I'll start with, let's walk over here, and I'll show you something here. We come around this side. I think we're going to start here. This is your eject chute. The containers come up. The containers come up here. They hit this baffle and fall into this chute. And for our changeover, I'm just going to loosen this and just drop this out of the way. Reason is we got to access these handles. So, and this is not really a very critical setting. So I just dropped it out of the way. And what I'm also going to do, if we can come back around the front, we're going to remove this. I'm going to remove this tube feeder magazine. It's for the 2 minutes that it takes you. It's probably worth it, because I think you can much more easily adjust the tube feeder with this off. So I just removed the nut. I'm going to take this locking lever off. And you'll need to see this anyway when you get the machine to put this on. It's easy. Just grab this and I'm going to slide this back. And that's it. I'm going to take this off so I don't walk into it. I said, it's for the minute or two it took to take that off. It makes it a lot easier to put the feeder where you want it. Okay, now this handle, this is a locking handle. That's all. This handle just locks this one in place. So I'm just going to move this up out of the way. Okay. All right, now I think maybe we might have to come around the back unless we can see it from here. If you can see under here, there's two socket head cap screws on this center column. This may be easier to see from the back side, but we can stay here, I think. Can you see it from there? Yeah, these socket heads I loosened. There they are. There's one. And when we turn this, we can raise and lower that disc. But we're not going to do it yet because I want to, as I said before, I want to make sure everything's out of the way. In this case, we're lowering it so that the critical thing is these lift tables. And then also, if we were raising it, this eject, at the eject station, this bar stops these inserts from being lifted up. So if we were coming up, we would make sure that was way out of the way. But in this case, we can let that go till later. All right, so now I'm going to come around and drop those lift tables. Okay, right now, I'm going to just, as I mentioned, I'm just going to drop these tables out of the way. All it is, it's a split collar that clamps this table onto it clamps around the shaft so that you can move this up and down. And we will provide you basically a road map of the heights from there. Now, they're marked, but the marks are hard to see. But they're there. But I would like to also verify everything by measurement. So we're down out of the way. One more here, the eject. And before we rotate this, we're going to double check everything. Okay, that's out of the way. They're not set yet, but they're down and out of the way. All right. As I just showed you, the lift tables are out of the way. Incidentally, we will come back to this, but the machine right now, it's in mid-rotation. So we know that these tables are at their lowest position. And I'll explain that a little more detailed later. But while the disc is rotating, these are down, which is what you want. You don't want any surprises. I'll explain later. But anyway, in the information that we'll give you, we give you a setting for the disc, and that the setting is measured from the deck to the top of the disc. And for the 8 ounce, it happens to be 7.5. And then we're showing here we're at 9 3/16. So we're going to drop that down. Maybe I'll put some grease in it. It moves nicely. Okay, now you can see there, I'm measuring from the deck to the top of that disc. We're at 7.5, and that looks good. So I'll just cinch up these socket head cap screws a little bit. No need to really over tighten them. It's not really going to go anywhere. Little wrench. It's helpful to have the right size wrench. All right. There's one. This might be easier from the back side. Probably is. There's less in the way, but just for the camera, we'll show you that. All right. That part is done. All right, since we're here, I'm jumping out of sequence a little bit, but I'll show you. I have one remaining insert to change. As I said, we're going from 3 to 8 ounces. I've already done the inserts for 11 of the 12. I've done 11 of the 12 inserts, but we'll show you one. Now, inserts are held in by 3 socket heads. What I do, I turn these out till about 1/8 of an inch of that set screw is sticking up. You don't have to remove them, then it takes a lot longer. So you just screw them out thusly. There you go. Now inserts come out. They fit sort of snug. We'll put the new one in. That's one of the tighter ones. Anyway, make sure that is seated in there. Usually I give it a spin. You can tell. And then just turn them in, and don't over tighten. Just maybe make make contact, and then 1/8 turn, 1/4 turn. Done. And that's the last of them. All right. All right. We're not really going in a particular order here, but what we just jumped from we changed the inserts. Now I'm gonna adjust the tube loader now. What I did I happen to know that on the 8 ounce. We've got to drop this down quite a bit. So I'm taking the locking ring all up just about as far as it can go. Then I'm going to crank him down. And there's a line here. I don't even know if the camera's seeing it, probably is, but anyway, I'm going to go to that line. And we're also going to give you dimensions that we'll give you a dimension from the deck to here, the bottom of this block, and to the bottom of this block. And we'll show you. We'll point that out to you. But this line is here. But those dimensions are in case you can no longer see the line. That should be good enough. Now I don't know if the camera again can pick this up. Underneath here, if you can shoot directly up, there's three markings. There's a marking here on this angle, marked there, and there's 3 lines. Now we're going to loosen up this nut. I'm sorry, this bolt, this hex head cap screw, and we'll slide this plate to line up those lines. Okay. As I said, I loosened this cap screw, and I slid the 8 ounce line till it corresponded with this line here, and then I'm going to tighten it back up. Now, on this tube feeder, it has a lot of flexibility. So even though we're going to go to these lines, in the end we're going to make sure that the lines are probably not a fine enough adjustment. In the end, we're going to make sure that everything works, that everything is in line. So ultimately, it just drops the tubes into the pockets, of course. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is change this carriage. That'll be here. Roll one. You can see, I'll show you this. This clamping bolt, if you loosen that, you can move this carriage, you know, front, forward, or backward on this shaft, and as well as rotation. And we will be setting that later. In fact, I might be setting it now. I think I have to come out. I will have to move that a little bit. Maybe not. You're looking for roughly 1/8 of an inch gap between this magazine and the edge of this. Another thing I want to show you. Okay. This, as I was mentioning, that this thing, this entire unit, it's flexible, and that's a good thing, but it's a bad thing because that means you have to really pay attention to every dimension. And I'm gonna kind of twist this. I don't know if you can see what I'm. These things loose. Make sure this guy's loose here. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to twist this till we're somewhat square. If you can see that. This has it has the ability to kind of articulate, and it works best when this shaft is parallel with this loading magazine, and it can, as I said, articulate. So I kind of move it around until it's pretty square. You see this line here? This plane is pretty much even with that plane. That's pretty much what we want. So we're down to our line. I'm gonna lock these screws up because I think we're good. But we'll, in the end, as I said, we'll check the tube. Make sure everything drops in. Just gonna pinch these. I don't think there's any need to over tighten them. I'll lock this guy. Oh, this not a whole lot of loop room in that airline, but that'll work. Okay. All right. Moving on. All right, I'm gonna change this guide angle. As I mentioned, this angle was provided for the 1.5 ounce tubes, but it works quite well enough with the 3 ounce, so we left it in place. However, it won't work. It actually probably would work enough, but this angle is better for the 8 ounce tubes. I'm just going to put that in. And we'll square it up. Okay. I'm just going to lightly snug that for now, because I'm going to have to set this. I'm going to have to rotate the table around so that I'm at an index location to set this properly. Okay. I'm going to change this disc, the setting disc. All I'm doing, I'm holding the air cylinder with a wrench. This is really just finger tight. That's good. This is adjustable up and down, in and out, and everything, but it's been working without changing any of these settings. It works just fine. So I haven't had to move that at all. So we're good there. Next thing, this needs to be adjusted up. Obviously, it's a bigger tube, and we'll adjust these rails out. I'll do that now. There's lines on here. I don't know if the camera can see them. And then, where is it here? Oh, okay, there's a line on this side. But as I said, some of the markings, they're not maybe precise enough for what we want to do. So in the end, you want to just check that everything is where it's supposed to be. This isn't that critical though. Okay. Oh, since the air's off, this guy can be moved up. All right. Now, next thing we'll do, maybe the camera can see, we need to adjust the location of this front to back, which is this socket head over here, and then in and out there's a, I don't know if you can see that screw there. Okay, we're setting this tube guide now, and I got it pretty well set. And the important thing for this guide is that this tube, you want it pretty much vertical, first of all, because it can move somewhat off the vertical plane. That is this way. Anyway, you want this so that if the tube is against it, it'll drop into that pocket. So you want this edge slightly behind the hole, that is that way, and then this edge slightly that way, because the between the radius in the pocket insert and the radius on this, it'll drop in if you but you don't want it coming over the hole, the hole in the insert. You don't want it too far in or too far over. You want it, if anything, that way and that way. I don't know if I explained that properly, but anyway, feels pretty good. And that this screw this will lock it in basically up and down and front to back, or rather vertical. This will set your motion this way, and this cap screw controls your in and out. And you kind of make little adjustments as you go, because one may affect the other, but that feels pretty good. Now we'll come around here and I'll show you what we've done here. All right, we're back on the front of the machine now, and I was showing you that when that tube's against that guide, it'll drop into the pocket. Also, I did rotate the table around so that it's in the stopped position. We'll show you more on that later, how to index it and jog it. But right now we know that we're in the stop location, so now this is set so that it drops in. I want to just check that this is your container that presses that into the pocket. We'll make sure that that's not going to crash. That's good. Okay. Once that's set, you're home free. This here, obviously the tubes roll down into this carriage. Now what I do, the air's off, so you can manipulate this however you want. So what I like to do is I rotate this around. Now you can set by loosening these socket heads. You can move this in and out, and actually vertical. But also it's important that this shaft rotates. This air cylinder drives this shaft. So what I do is I loosen this. In fact, I'll show you. I'll loosen this guy. By doing that, you can move this back and forth and rotate it. So I make sure that the shaft is rotated all the way for when we're feeding the pocket in. And so I keep pressure on that shaft to rotate it, and I'll turn this till we're what I'm looking for. I don't want to over push it, but I also want to make sure that when it's fully rotated, I have room to come down and press this into place. So right now with this screw, I'm setting it this way and the rotation. And then we will check that manually, and I'll show you that. the machine has it's a nice manual function where you can, you can manipulate things without running automatic just yet. Right now I'm turning this and I can tell that I'm over rotated. So I'm going to back that off a little bit. I think I'm good this way. But I'm going to turn this a little bit that way. Let's see. I like it. That should be good. Let's take that out. Okay, actually, on this, now we'll adjust this. This stops the tubes from having too much pressure on this, the tube that you want to feed. This comes down and holds the stack. And in this setting, it worked well for the 1.5 and the 3. On the larger tubes, I'm just going to center this a little bit more. This is not a very fussy, I don't know if that's the right word to use. It's not a real, critical adjustment. I want to move, there's a mark here. I want to move this guy out. And I'm just going to move him. You know what? I'm going to leave it. I want to leave it there. I think that's going to work. That'll save you a step. So we'll leave him. I just moved that one out, and I think that'll just be fine. And now I'm going to move this up. This actually kind of persuades the tubes a little bit to feed down. And let me move him up. There should be lines up there. Yep, there's a line. I don't know if you can see it. There's a line there on the back. It's on this back plate. Actually, I'll show you a little trick too. You can rotate this. You can rotate this by hand. Just make sure the power's off. You can turn this motor by hand, and you'll know exactly what this is going to do. So that way you can tell it. You just want to. It just sets a little bit of a little drag on the tubes and pushes them down. Okay, on this, this is also adjustable. These fingers are adjustable in and out somewhat, and I think you're probably okay leaving it where it is. I know it worked just fine for the two smaller tubes, but on the larger tube, I'm just going to slide this so it's slightly more centered in the opening of the magazine tray here. So I'll just loosen these screws and I'm going to move it out. Again, it's not a really particularly precise adjustment that you need here. Once we get, when we get more tubes in here, we'll probably tweak this a little bit. But I think that should be good. Okay, we're jumping around a little bit on this video, but I wanted to make sure I showed you the setting of these lift tables. What I did, I dropped them down and locked them in, locked them up. But a better way would probably be just get them set, and then you know you're done. So what I'm going to do, we'll give you a layout of all these dimensions. Now, this dimension of this table at bottom dead center, which is basically, the lift tables are at their lowest point. This one is 5 3/8 from the deck to the top of the table. It's pretty clear on the chart that we'll give you, so no worries there. There, and then this one, let me check. I'll get the next one is 5 1/4. The fussy ones are actually this lift table at the registration is, you have to be pretty close on that because it comes up and the eye has to see it. By close I mean a 32nd of an inch. This one is at 5 3/8. All right. Okay. That should be good. Okay, we're getting there. We're almost there. I set the lift tables. I was mentioning the critical ones really are this one at the spinning station where it registers, and I'll show you that later where the eye wants to see the code. That little. But the dimensions that you'll be given are pretty good, so that's good. This is the fill, that not so critical, but still it's got to be set right, especially so that there's no interference when the disc indexes. And then this is the heat. This lift table sets how high we're going to go up into the heating nozzle, which is, I'll give you dimensions on that, and so far every dimension's worked out nicely. So anyway, we're set. Oh, and just to remind you that the eject, that's got to be set as well. That this rod comes up and actually pushes the containers out and puts them into the box. All right, I'm going to take these discs out just to get them out of our way, and I'll show you the nozzle change. This is easy. Quick clamp. Remove the nozzle gasket. Now we're going to turn this plunger out. Make sure our this threads directly into this air cylinder. So far, I have not needed a wrench on the rod. It's been cooperating nicely. So, that's out. I'm going to put the new one in. I'm going to put a little lube on this. I just put a little lubricant on there. Mainly because I'm going up through an upper seal. I think that will help to it'll help the seal last longer. Okay. Threading it up. It's threading into the, I don't know how much you can see. It just threads into that air cylinder rod. I thread it all the way. That's good. Now, this is the largest nozzle. This will be for the 8-ounce tube. And everything, I will check all the air functions in the manual mode, which we'll show you later. But that's. I actually should have probably showed you the heater change while this was off, just for the camera's sake. It's a little bit more visibility. Does that look right? There we go. That gasket wasn't seated right. Now it is. Should feel the plunger down the end. That feels okay. That feels good. Okay. We're getting there. I'm going to put this plate under the heater. And one thing, I'll be getting to it later, but I'm going to say it now too. When you run the heater, you have to have the chiller on. Otherwise, what'll happen is these fittings will heat up too much and it'll wreck the seals in them. So if you're running tubes, have the chiller on. We'll show you that later. Also, you don't want to stop the table, especially with the tube up, but I like to, if you stop it somewhere when the tube's underneath the nozzle, the heater will melt it. So you just jog it around till you're away. Okay. What I'm going to show you now is we're going to replace the nozzle and the nozzle housing. So I'll take these lines out. These lines, I'll show you. These lines, they're diametrically opposed. These two are here. These are the lower ones, and then the upper ones are here. These have an orange mark on them, and these are not marked. I don't know if that was too clear or not, but anyway, these are push to connects. I'm going to take them out. You get a little water out of there because the system is filled with water. Now the chiller's not on, of course, because you get a lot of water. So, all right, lines are out. I'll drop this. Okay, this is your 3-ounce one. This is your 8-ounce one. I think it's a little easier if you put the clamp around here first and push it in. Make sure these surfaces should pretty much almost touch this and this. Then you know everything's seated. You don't want to force anything here. Now if I wrap him back around. You can usually tell with these quick clamps when they're seated properly. Okay, that's that. Now these guys here, I'm going to rotate that a little bit. In fact, I'll leave that loose until I'm happy with these settings here. That there, that and there. Now these two, as I said, these two lines coming down, they'll go on the two lower fittings. The one is on the far side here that you can't see, I'm sure, but make sure they're seated in there, that they feel good. Now I'll lock this down because the rotation feels pretty good. All right, that should be good. You know what I'll do? I'll just, while we're here, I'm just going to check and make sure a tube, yep, tube should slide in there nicely. It goes in this, oops, didn't want to turn that over with all the water in it, but there we go. Okay, we're at the back of the machine now, and this is the quantity adjustment. There's numbers here. This is a lock. That way's locked. That's unlocked. Now I find, for me, I found the best way to adjust the quantity is either crank the machine, jog it around till you're at top dead center, which is the fill piston. Okay, we're powered off, so I can open this up. When this is all the way up, you'll find you can move this pretty easy. The other way is to move it, turn the fill off, meaning you won't dispense or you actually dry run, and you can crank this around up or down very easily. Actually, it's moving pretty easy now. And we will give you numbers for the 3 different sizes. You may have to tweak it a little bit here and there, but it'll be a good starting point. I think this was somewhere up around 350. It's actually moving pretty easy, but it is moving the piston. But so you set your number here and lock it up. And that's pretty simple. Okay, here we're at the back of the machine. This is your actual tube crimper, and it also it puts a date stamp and actually the product name, and the stamps are inside the jaws. There's really no adjustments on these, so they're set Actually, that's why the disc and everything moves up to them. Them being, this is your crimper, and then this is the cutter. And this also blows off the cutoff, and it comes down this chute. And again, they're set and fixed, so there's no real adjustment there. Okay, we're really on a home stretch. This is the eject station, what we're looking at. And what I did, I adjusted the rod here, as I think I mentioned earlier in the video. This rod is so that when these containers are pushed out, the inserts can't pop up out of the index table. So we set this. That adjustment is made here. This clamps the rod vertically, and we leave about 1/4 of an inch in here. Not a real fussy arrangement, but we'll give you a mark up here. You'll be able to see, hopefully, when you get it. But as I said, it's you leave a gap there so that you don't want them crashing into the rod. But it's just to keep them from popping out. And also, it moves in and out, which is done here. And again, there's marks up here. But the important thing is that they're behind the tube when the tube comes around. So these are on the inside of this hole. And then this baffle is set. For this tube, I had to move it up considerably, and we'll give you a mark here. And then this chute, I just set. It's actually almost all the way down. You can move this. You have some flexibility. Just don't go above the height of that insert on the chute. So like I said, it's pretty far down, about even with the top of this. And I'll snug it up, and that's that. Okay, I wanted to show you one more thing regarding the photo eye and the benchmarking or registration. What I'm going to do, I'm going to jog the tube around until it comes up, and then I'm in the manual mode on the operator panel. I'll hit benchmark, and you'll see exactly what it does, and then I'll show you another adjustment you can make if you need to. So here I'm going to jog it around, and the tube will come up. Now I'm going to press benchmark, and then you'll watch. See the eye saw that black mark on the tube. And you can see where the eye is, how it's focused, and the height of it. You may or may not need to adjust that. When you go from the 1.5 ounce tube to the 3 ounce or the 8 ounce, I mentioned that this eye slides along this slot, and that's how it focuses. That by that distance, that's how it focuses on the tube, and you can see it. You can see either a clear blue dot, or you can see a kind of a fuzzy dot. Now, I don't know if the camera can catch that. You can see how kind of defined that blue spot is. If the eye was a little farther back, it may not read it quite as well. So I just wanted to mention that I had to make a minor adjustment only because of the play in the slots that mount the eye, and it nails it every time. I'll do it again. I'll just hit benchmark in the manual mode, and so I just wanted to show you that adjustment. All right. Okay, now we're standing at the back of the machine, and I just wanted to quick show you the date stamp. Now, very important. I can't say it enough. Take the power off the machine. You don't want this thing starting while your hands are in it, because this is the crimper station here. It also one of these jaws has the company name in it, and this jaw has the date stamp in it. And I'll just show you. I'll show you quick how that works. 2 set screws. Or I'm sorry, socket head cap screws. I just loosened those. This is your date stamp. From this vantage point, it's upside down and backwards. Just so you know, I don't know if the camera's is that picking that up? Now the way to change that, you can see there's two flatheads on top. I would definitely do this over a table of some sort in case you drop those letters, because they're kind of small. So let me take this off. I don't know how much you're seeing of this. There's your stamps. They're like that. Now they come out individually. You can see they have a, I'll pull one out. You can see the profile of that. See that little offset there? That's what captures it in this jaw. I'll put that back on it. You can see that. That's about it. When you have it in your hand, you'll know exactly what to do with it. This does have, it has deeper counterbores in the top side of this, and you'll know you got it correct when you put it back together. The screws will they'll sit down flush. Oops. It should sit down flush. Oops. You know what? It helps when you put it on the right way. The stamps face out. Okay, now we're talking. That may go in the blooper section. But here, that's how we do that. That's what it looks like when it's done. And it goes like this. You'll see the bevel side will be facing down. And we just put that in the jaws. Put it about even side to side and put it back against these. These are socket head cap screws in the back. That's for adjusting it in and out, and that's adjusted now. It leaves a nice state stamp, so there's no need to adjust that. So I'm just going to snug these up. You don't have to get overly tight with it. A little snug there. There. Okay, and these are your numbers for your dating. Okay, now we're standing at the back of the machine, and I just wanted to quick show you the date stamp. Now, very important. I can't say it enough. Take the power off the machine. You don't want this thing starting while your hands are in it, because this is the crimper station here. It also one of these jaws has the company name in it, and this jaw has the date stamp in it. And I'll just show you. I'll show you quick how that works. Two set screws. Or I'm sorry, socket head cap screws. I just loosened those. This is your date stamp. From this vantage point, it's upside down and backwards. Just so you know, I don't know if the camera's is that picking that up? Now the way to change that, you can see there's two flatheads on top. I would definitely do this over a table of some sort in case you drop those letters, because they're kind of small. So let me take this off. I I don't know how much you're seeing of this. There's your stamps. They're like that. Now they come out individually. You can see they have a, I'll pull one out. You can see the profile of that. It's that little offset there. That's what captures it in this jaw. I'll put that back on it. You can see that. That's about it. When you have it in your hand, you'll know exactly what to do with it. This does have, it has deeper counterbores in the top side of this, and you'll know you got it correct when you put it back together. The screws will they'll sit down flush. Oops. It should sit down flush. Oops. You know what? It helps when you put it on the right way. The stamps face out. Okay, now we're talking. It may go in the blooper section. But there, that's how we do that. That's what it looks like when it's done. And it goes like this. You'll see the bevel side will be facing down. And we just put that in the jaws. Put it about even side to side and put it back against these. These are socket head cap screws in the back. That's for adjusting it in and out, and that's adjusted now. It leaves a nice state stamp, so there's no need to adjust that. So I'm just going to snug these up. You don't have to get overly tight with it. A little snug there. There. Okay, and these are your numbers for your dating. Okay, a couple notes on maintenance. There's only 2 grease fittings on the machine, which there's one here on the column. I'm going to grease that once in a while, and then let's go below. There's this eccentric. There's a grease fitting here, right there. Now all the other components, the best thing to do, I would say, is just get a tube of grease and maybe apply it to you know, any moving part. Actually, you know what? Maybe let's go around the other side, and I'll show you that. Well, actually, there's one shaft here. This vertical shaft here, you could lubricate either with an oil or a grease, and then we'll go around the other side, and I'll show you the other. Okay, we went around the other side, and I was mentioning these shafts move up and down. This one here, and there's 2 in the back here and 1 here. Probably a good idea to just get a tube of grease and apply it while it's up and apply it while it's down, so it can work its way in. And there's also a spline here. I would say jog the machine around till it's up, and then apply grease to this spline in here. And there's a similar spline actually on the quantity adjustment. I would do the same thing. Just smear grease wherever you can, and it'll help.